This is the second part of our discussion on national income accounting. This is a continuation of the lecture 1 that we had already covered till now. I'll start with this part where we have already spoken about the equivalence of the three methods that we usually use for the national income accounting. The first part here, as usual, there are three methods. So the first was, as usual, the national product or the value added method has an accounting equivalence with the income method, where incomes of citizens or residents of an economy, those are taken, and these income can have wages, rents, interest rate, so on and so forth as part of their component. And finally, the most important part through which the rest of the lecture would be designed is the national expenditure. And I'd like to take you back to this spending approach or the expenditure approach, where we had these four sectors, where the government sector at the end, and starting with the household sector, a business sector, and then we have a trade sector or a national exports or net foreign sector spending. And these are all again expenditure method. As we have discussed, it includes the expenditure incurred in a particular year for an economy, and these are the broad four sectors through which these expenditures are calculated. And if these approaches of three methods of calculating the national income are equivalent, then we come to a point where the expenditure approach can be elaborated in this manner, where GDP or national income can be equivalently be a part of these components: the personal consumption, private investment, government consumption, government investment, and net exports. So, for the sake of calculation, or as the convention in macroeconomics go, consumption essentially is divided into personal consumption and government consumption, and thereby, whenever I'm talking about G as the notation of government spending, essentially we are talking about G as government investment. The government consumption can be thought of as somewhere in government offices or something if some purchases are made which of final goods and produces. So say for example at ISI, if stationaries are bought for use, or if some stationaries are bought in the contingency for use, these are all government purchases for final produce consumption. However, once a residential building within, or a new academic building within Indian Statistical Institute is made, and since the expenditure is incurred by the Ministry of Statistics program implementation, that will come as a government investment part. For private investment, we can think of the investments that are incurred in the business sector or private sectors. Say, for example, any company starts a new factory, buys a new machine, adds to its already existing fixed capital stock. That would be the private investment. Again, going back to the idea of investment in macroeconomics, we should remember that investment necessarily in macroeconomics means that anything that is added to the net fixed capital stock, it's it cannot be something intangible as education, it cannot be something intangible as reading a book or so on and so forth, even though we are investing time, until and unless that investment comes in a form of a factor of production, particularly in this case a capital, we do not consider it as investment. Therefore, GDP in expenditure method, or national income here in expenditure method, has broadly five components, and taking personal consumption and government consumption under the broad C or consumption notation. So consumption, investment, government expenditure, and net exports. So we are down to four components here. And net exports again means that in a year, the exports that are made minus the imports that are, or the goods and services that are imported from other foreign countries as part of the economic trade relations. So uh, to simplify this in expenditure method, we have the C plus I plus G plus X minus M, X minus M being the net exports part. Now as you have already come across in parts of microeconomics, savings is something that is here thought of as a leakage from the GDP, or uh, the goods and services that are produced in this particular year that is not consumed in this year and rather saved through banks, through several other means, and then carry forwarded in the next year's part. That would be savings. Savings again is a flow concept. It's an annual savings that we're talking about, and the stock here would be the capital stock, or if we may say that savings, if something is put in the bank or somewhere else, that can be later converted back into money capital or many other forms of capital. Therefore, savings is a flow concept in a year, that the savings that are being made, and that is essentially equivalent to GDP minus personal consumption and government consumption, again putting both the things at as C. So once we do that, therefore GDP minus C gives us back to these, with this income accounting identity, we are left with private investment, government investments, and net exports. That's exactly what is written here, that savings is equivalent to the private investment, government spending, and the net exports. And this is what is known as the relationship between savings, investment, and trade. Now think of it in this manner: for a closed economy where there is no net exports, or there is no trade relations with other economies, although there is no such economy which exists as of now in the world which are not having any trade relations, but for the time being, let us assume that it's a closed economy and it's a self-sufficient closed economy. Whatever it produces, it either consumes or saves. Then we are, this equality, or this savings equal to this I plus G, is something that is known as saving investment equality as well. We'll come back to this later when we discuss further about some of the macroeconomic identities. But this is necessarily the relation between savings, investment, and trade. And this relation emanates from the expenditure method of GDP, or national income accounting. And once we have understood this, that savings is equal, saving investment, or saving becoming the uh, equivalent with the investment or exports, we are down to a relationship which necessarily means, therefore, that this equilibrium, or this accounting identity provides us with an equilibrium, that savings is equal to investment plus exports is an equilibrium for an economy, because otherwise this accounting identity won't hold. And the question here remains, I mean, what happens if savings is greater than investment, or savings is less than investment? And that again we have to go back to the idea of investment back here, that investment, when we talk about, had there are broadly 4 or 5 categories of investment that we had already discussed, or rather the addition to the capital stock happens is this in this manner, that the business and government can have equipment and software investment in those, and then structures, residences, these are the fixed capital addition. And finally, the equivalence of savings and investment is made through what is known as inventories, or business inventories. Business inventories means that in this year, if some investment or some goods and services are produced and not sold in the economy, that is added to the capital stock for the next year, and that is the difference between savings and investment when we come here. So when savings is greater than investment, or and thereby what do we mean by that? It means that the GDP minus consumption, when we are taking, that is greater than the investment that has been made, or exports that are being, net exports that are being done, which means that investment here lacks than the savings, or investment that is made is more than the savings, so thereby it is added to the inventories, right? It is added to the inventories, or the uh, net gross fixed capital stock through inventories. And the second part, when we talk about savings is less than investment, then how we go back to the equilibrium of saving investment equality, that is from the previous year's net fixed capital stock that we already had here, that we already had a fixed capital stock. Now, since savings is less than investment, or the investment that has been made in this year cannot pull up the amount of savings that are being done, then the previous year's inventories get depleted, or the business inventory investment gets depleted, and the investment being equalized with savings here. And that's how the saving, investment and trade accounting identity is being somewhat put in equilibrium over here. Now there are one more thing to add here. The savings that we are again talking about here does not take into account the wears and tears of capital that is being done, or the existing capital stock gets depleted every year, what is known as depreciation. So from GDP, or which is a gross domestic product, from there, once we deduct once we come to the savings, or once we deduct the consumption, and we get the savings, which is a gross savings, and from savings, once we deduct the depreciation value, we arrive at a point which we can call as the net savings of an economy. And this brings rather to all of an end to the macroeconomic identities, or the national income accounting identities that we are concerned with. The second part now we are interested in, as you might have already come across several newspaper articles or something, where we always talk about any country's government whenever they come to the core of the power, or when they are democratically elected, the discussion always moves around that how have the economy performed. Now how have it performed has to do something with how it was performing earlier. So thereby the idea of growth comes, that whether the economy has grown over time, or whether the economy has performed better, cannot be in terms of this year's performance. So we, once we want to compare the previous year's performance with this year's performance, previous year's GDP with this year's GDP, we enter into the understanding of growth of GDP. And growth rate, both of these relate to the change in GDP from previous year or previous years. So it can be, we can be interested in the 2000 to 2010 decade, and how GDP was growing then, and in the subsequent decade 2010 to 20, the decade that we are in and it is about to end, how GDP has performed, or GDP has grown over that year. So growth is the absolute change that has happened between current year's GDP to previous year's GDP. But usually in the discussion of macroeconomics, as well as the discussion of the popular journalistic understanding, it is always that we talk about India's GDP is growing at some percentage rate or something. So that rate is where growth rate is concerned. Growth rate is nothing but once we divide growth by the previous year's GDP, like any other rate, we arrive at the growth rate, and once we multiply that by 100, we arrive at a growth rate percentage. So say for example, in 2019, if the GDP was something around 100 billion, or rupees 100 billion, and now it is say rupees 150 billion, so the difference would be 50 billion, rupees 50 billion, and that divided by rupees 100 billion would, and then multiplied by 100, would give us the growth rate at which India is performing in the current year, or 2020. And the same goes for the growth rate if we compare it with the previous decade or something, that we take the this decade's GDP and compare it with the previous decade. Although the growth formula then becomes a compound interest rate formula, or a compound GDP annual growth rate formula, but nonetheless the understanding is as simple as this, that we deduct this year's or current year's GDP from the previous year's GDP, and how much this year GDP has grown with respect to the previous year gives us the growth rate expressed in a percentage term. Now, as you remember that in product approach, we have already understood that GDP is always price into quantity. That for say for example, if we take an understanding of an economy where only apples and oranges are produced, it's a hypothetical economy, just to simplify things. So in year one, the price per pound of apples and oranges were here this is a new US economy example. So $1 was per unit cost of apple, and dollar or price of apples, and $2 is per unit price of oranges, and the quantity produced are 150. Thereby we multiply these two and arrive at the current year's GDP, or year one's GDP, pardon, it's previous year's GDP. And in year two, if we understand that the apples are now, the prices have improved of our apples is, and that has become, apples price have become $1.5 per unit, and oranges remained at the same. However, the production of oranges have improved, and thereby again we multiply the prices into quantity, we arrive at the uh, $150 for apples and $150 for oranges. And this is exactly this current year prices. Once we are taking the current year prices into account to calculate GDP, we are not taking into account the changes in prices. Rather, what we are taking is in each year prices into each year's quantity produced, and we arrive at something that is known as nominal GDP. Here, the prices remain the current year's prices. So in year one, current year prices, whatever that was, in year two, current year prices, whatever that was, that those prices are being taken into account to calculate GDP. And thereby, if I now tell you to that what is the growth rate of this GDP, the growth rate in current year prices would be this 300 minus 200 divided by 200 into 100, and that much how it has improved or grown from the previous year, year one to year two. The problem here is it does not reflect whether the change in GDP is coming only from increase in prices. An increase in prices of apples or might have caused or shown these increase, because even though for oranges the growth have improved, we necessarily don't know that whether the goods and services produced, whether that has actually improved. And exactly because of this reason, we calculate something that is known as real GDP. And real GDP is where we take constant prices. The quantities are year one and year two quantities. However, we take the base year price or price of year one in order to actually check that how much have the real economy. Here the real and nominal difference come from the difference in prices. In nominal GDP we take current prices, in real GDP we take base year prices. Here the base year is 1, and thereby in the first year the nominal GDP and real GDP remains the same. However, if you see, we are taking the same prices for year 2, and now the GDP is only $250 rather than $300. So $50 change was coming because of the price change of apples, and that is something that is eliminated in the real GDP calculation. And real GDP necessarily gives us an understanding of how the real economy or how the quantity produced that have improved over time. And thereby, if we now want to understand the difference between nominal and real GDP, it is necessarily the difference between these two prices. Now, this is where we end the first lecture on GDP and national income, the continuation part. These are the few identities, and the rest of the materials and the rest of the discussion, whatever that we have done, would be already uploaded in the Moodle. I once again thank you all for being part of the discussion. Thanks.